Good morning. Hello to everyone. Bonjour to all. Buongiorno. It's really nice to be here with you all today. I have lived in Switzerland for about 20 years and in Zurich for 7 years now. So I extend my best regards again to the members of the cantonal government and to everyone from Zurich. Today, it's all about the future together. A topic that I have been working on for 24 years now. Sometimes I feel excited about the left, and at other times, I feel on the right as well, leaning left, spooky, a strange unsettled sense that darkness may spread around us in our common future. In the last few years, of course, it has naturally become much harder to talk openly and honestly about what would constitute a good, sustainable future for all of us and for the generations to come. That has been my main topic for about 10 years now, the idea called the good future, a phrase I keep returning to in conversation. And these days, I often hear from my own children that the good future might, when we look at everything together, be a rather bad future. And I think we need to pause and think carefully about what that means, what exactly is good, and what exactly is bad. Of course, we also clearly know what a truly bad future would be. No freedoms at all, not a single good planet, not a single environment, no opportunities to unfold, to flourish, and so forth. But then, what precisely is a good, desirable future? Now we are at a key point where we can truly say, in fact, that science and technology are bringing us exponential progress, yet the global world order is collapsing around us. The traditional economic logic behind how everything operates in our daily lives, since COVID and then the wars, and now the ongoing heated discussion in the United States. We are now at a point where we say that all the things we are seeing, artificial intelligence, humanoid robots, quantum computing, these are all totally important, good things that could really improve our future, perhaps even bringing about nirvana for humanity. Nuclear fusion, CERN, the long-sought possibility of unlimited energy. This is not merely 50 years away, it may be as little as 15 years from now. Quantum computing, geoengineering, and, of course, many other important topics as well. If we do this right, I would say we could solve most of our practical, everyday problems, water, food, disease, and transport, and change everyday life for people everywhere. If we do it right, and we do it with care. But unfortunately, the world order keeps getting in our way in these unsettled times for the whole world today, where we say we have these great opportunities, and we actually do have the money too, but we still find it hard to work together. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, puts it plainly. The United States is no longer the center of the global economy as a whole now.
The last century was defined by concentration of capital, production, and power. The next one will be defined by diffusion of technology, of energy, and influence, by the rise of the global south and new roles for middle powers like Canada, to multilateral arrangements that work for all.
Multilateral arrangements that work for everyone everywhere. That is right here in Switzerland, something we are also actively trying to live out in practice. And there we face a huge, daunting challenge in these 4 radically transformative revolutions that we are currently witnessing. The geopolitical revolution, which I will explain shortly. The digital revolution, no longer merely digital transformation, but thinking machines, in quotation marks. The green revolution, which is currently being rolled back in certain regions around the world because climate change isn't really a pressing issue, in quotation marks. The purpose revolution, the meaning revolution, where people between the ages of 25 and 45 say that we want not only growth and profit for the planet of other people, but also peace. When you talk to people who might be around 30 years old, you receive a message that clearly says, we do not want only financial growth or more jobs, but we think in somewhat broader terms. This leads to a crucial turning point that Charlie Munger of Berkshire Hathaway has expressed again and again in business, economics, and policy discussions in many different contexts around the globe. Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the results. If this incentive remains, as it is now, people simply profit growth, power, and money, with nothing else changing in the picture. What happens in a world of AI if we do not pursue a broader approach, an approach we already know well here, through practice, research, and discussion? People planet, purpose, peace, prosperity, peace, and meaning for life and society. Another one, a kind of sustainable capitalism, a form we are seeing more and more in the real world. That is what we are already doing here in a sense. How can we bring this out into the world? How can we truly regard it as a global standard? When we observe the stock market behaves in the exact opposite way. The stock market approves exactly what the opposite does. A few years ago, the most beloved stocks were still Aramco, the Saudi Arabian oil company, or Meta, and now they are among the top 10 technology companies for the world economy and investors. Thus we look in a direction in which we must say we need to reflect on what happens in this global reordering or even disorder today, so to speak. One could say, now we have a multi-global world in which the United States say, we are no longer the power of Pax Americana that we used to be, but we rethink, and then of course we are in a period in which this rethink mainly includes fear and dominance. Naturally, we are in a period where this rethink, mainly I would say, involves fear and dominance. Carl Bildt, the former Prime Minister of Sweden, who argues that the illiberal world order has arrived here, the illiberal world. When we take that into account, he says that the United States has become an engine of international disorder. Who would have thought it? What does that mean for us here in Europe? And especially for Switzerland, given that we are so closely bound to what is happening there. In which direction are we currently heading right now? That's not something we hear solely from Jeffrey Sachs, for example, if you want to listen to radical opinions about it. Many people tell me during my travels today that the United States is unpredictable, unreliable, and undemocratic. What can we reasonably expect? Imagine the United States collapses, something that some people consider likely. Also, there are indeed some truly real wildcards there, where I say I spent 20 long years in America, I love America deeply, my children are Americans, I have a divided relationship to this discussion, but surely it's really great for us, because we are finally urged to become the United States of Europe. I'm originally from Germany here. What does that really mean for Switzerland? A rather big question. Please ask a Swiss person about it. But I think we must speak very clearly about what it means for us, the opportunity before us, the cooperation. The United States of Europe, for example. A pan-European high-speed rail system, perhaps. That is what we have been discussing for 30 long years. Indeed. It's coming. There we'll take the train from Zurich to Sofia, Bulgaria, or even to Madrid, a pan-European cybersecurity force that we truly and urgently need, a pan-European military for our continent. It's hard to imagine that we will work so closely together in the future, but I believe that is where this is headed now. The digital euro is on its way and coming soon. Central bank digital currency as commonly known.
I have good news for you on the digital euro front. Today the Governing Council has decided to move ahead on the next and final phase of the preparatory work for the digital euro.
I would predict that in the near future, the dollar will no longer be the leading currency that it is now, but perhaps the digital euro, the digital dollar perhaps, and that is all for now. Significant, sweeping changes lie ahead of us there indeed. The question for us is, exactly where do we really stand there? Are we standing here, although that, of course, is clearly an outright absolute simplification indeed. America isn't solely about money, but okay, if we phrase it provocatively that way, I suppose. The question is no longer today what we really want to do with technology, but what we truly want to do. We can do anything. We can upload our brains to the internet. We can manipulate our own genes very soon. Perhaps with artificial intelligence, we could. In 10 years, we'll be 120 years old, and sooner or later 150. What do we really want, and by what standards is it good? Is it really good to become 150? Is it good if we no longer have to work? These important questions have kept us extremely busy for a very long time, but today they are truly timely and clearly visible in a gigantic, steadily upward trending curve. We had the Industrial Revolution long ago. when muscle power was gradually replaced by machines a few hundred years ago, and now comes the intelligence revolution, the AI revolution, where suddenly intelligence is not human intelligence, around the world and beyond. That is not our own intelligence, which steadily grows with artificial intelligence, perhaps a little already, but rather an alien intelligence, an extraterrestrial, non-human intelligence, a logic-based intelligence that possesses no knowledge whatsoever of values, of worldview, of ideas regarding the future, and which is grounded purely in logic and in probability. The truth is not a mere feature of artificial intelligence, which is based on the facts we currently possess, or on ones we might possibly extend into broader contexts. An even more important point is that this artificial intelligence, as Geoffrey Hinton always says, is no longer programmed, but it grows, truly. He says it grows, much the same way a baby does. Large language models learn so much that even at this very moment, we sometimes do not know exactly how they arrived in the state they hold today, or that they go so far as to develop their own language. That naturally raises the pressing question of whether we can exert any control over it, truly. No. And when it comes to business intelligence, SAP, IBM, Microsoft Copilot, then we would say, all right, productivity is in fact a useful and welcome capability for practical everyday use. But when it comes to creating a human-like intelligence, a superintelligence, with an IQ of 50,000, then we must be clear and unambiguous. Count me out. It's entirely inevitable that we simply cannot fully control this. And these discussions are economic in nature indeed. Replacing humans is the truly largest economic driver within the present economy. Replacing human labor. No matter what you do, and no matter how you do it. AI is a superb, highly capable tool, and a superb, highly capable instrument. If you are working on a construction site, it takes a full day to make the doors, and today you have a nail gun, with which you can drive nails very quickly. A nail gun is a nail gun, and anyone who has better tools does better work. So not always, but mostly, which makes the point even stronger. Therefore, I would say that this is actually pretty good too, but a nail gun is also dangerous, and safety is a concern. I won't give it to my own 6-year-old son so that he can later play with it in the sandbox. With AI, it's exactly the same in every way. The Microsoft head of AI, Microsoft AI, Mustafa Suleyman says, indeed, if you're not utterly amazed by AI, you don't understand it. If you're not afraid, you don't understand it. There, I could say, hey, that's exactly how I feel. I use it every day, and then I ask myself, am I still actually thinking about this myself? Or do I send my clients a video avatar in 14 different languages? Yes. Is that good? Or is that bad? Is that slob, as they say? Also, AI slob. GPT yesterday had 810 million users, 7% of whom faithfully pay their $30 or $100 per month, depending on the plan. And it grows faster than the internet has grown.
The eventual state of this is the computers running all business processes, right? So you have an agent to do this, 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 and you concatenate them together, and they speak language among each other. So when I look at this future, I want to be clear that the arrival of this intelligence, both at the AI level, the AGI, which is general intelligence, and then superintelligence, is the most important thing that's going to happen in about 500 years.
Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, the ultimate point is that the computer runs every single business process. We do not know whether we should cry or laugh about this at all. Yes, okay, perhaps we will then have a company that is worth $1 billion and employs 10 people. Is that good for us, do you think? Do we want this, really? Is it truly efficient? So, if we have to go there, we must also make it absolutely clear where exactly the money is located. The money is going into artificial intelligence, and to such an extent that one could almost pull out one's hair. OpenAI will invest $1.5 trillion in data centers globally. And of course there, as for example in Saudi Arabia, where there is plenty of money, and the Swiss National Bank is invested in these companies, as you probably all know. The top 4 assets account for about 25% today in the market. The SMB assets are concentrated in the world's firms like Meta, Microsoft, and NVIDIA globally. And I'm sure that your assets also partly benefit from what happens with these, and of course my assets as well. We are completely intertwined with it. Is that sovereignty? Or is that dependence? Or is it normal in today's economy? Collateral damage is no longer a concern in many technologies. We are no longer at the point where we say this is merely magic, this is great and wonderful. Rather, it becomes manic. The best word for it is Instagram, manic. If you photograph your meals instead of eating them, you're manic. And toxic. The best example of toxic, Facebook, the data milking machine. Back then, that was, as it were, nothing short of magic. Social media shows us how this works, how it goes down, and we are the collateral damage produced by these systems. Toxic means you can ask ChatGPT for the most effective, perhaps the ultimate, way to take your own life. You just have to say that you are writing a book about it. Then he clearly and precisely shows you exactly how this works, what several hundred people have already done so far, and why it matters. This, of course, is a good and practical use of this system. And what happens to democracy today? Democracy shatters when we have no trust, when we only talk to machines. If we do not openly ask questions, we can be very happy that it still works so well here, and perhaps also in Europe. But all around the world we can clearly observe that. We can indeed see there what transpires when democracies crumble. Viewing dehumanization as nothing less than a sport played by their own intelligence. Here in this chart, you can clearly see the S&P 500, the stock market in the United States, and it's moving upward overall, with AI, and so on. Of course, it goes up and down every week, and job openings are falling. This isn't always the case, of course, but it nonetheless goes up and down very often. It's not at all entirely one-sided, yet the dehumanization of society remains starkly evident and is not a coincidence. Here is the demo dehumanization of society. ChatGPT itself says, when you ask ChatGPT how many people will become unemployed, we will publish the slides later. ChatGPT then says, 89% of fast food workers, 80% of admin assistants, 76% of accounting will be replaced by technology. That is, of course, enormously beneficial for OpenAI, Baidu, Alibaba, Google, Microsoft, and Meta. Is that good for us? If you own the shares of these companies, that is good for us. 2% of the population. We need to think about what that means, if it is really true. When artificial intelligence arrives, and it comes and begins to wipe out our jobs, erode our self-confidence, and erase our ways of thinking, then we must say, okay, what we actually ought to do is use artificial intelligence as a tool, but not as a replacement. That is, as a tool, not as God. To be precise, if you only skim through portions of the official publications put out by the AI companies, you might perhaps really come to believe that what you are looking at is, in effect, a religion. It even feels like a religion. The very thing OpenAI has publicly laid out as its plan for everyone to observe. Chatbots, reasoners, agents, innovators, organizations, and politicians who are AI, because they are allegedly not biased. Thus, there is now a gigantic temptation to substitute humans, the explicitly declared aim of these very large multinational corporations. Here, you can clearly see revenues rising steadily, and on the left, jobs are falling steadily too.
The era that we're just starting is that intelligence is rare, a great doctor, a great teacher. And with AI, over the next decade, that will become free, commonplace. Great medical advice, great tutoring.
Will we still need humans?
Not for most things.
Thanks, Bill Gates. Okay then. He sometimes speaks about it differently, but that was the dark part of my presentation. It moves on, and somewhat more positively from here on. You can already clearly see the advertisement currently on display in San Francisco. Yes, don't hire humans, hire AI. And this company, clearly named Mechanize, states that we are actively seeking to automate the entire automation of work, the complete and total automation of all kinds of work. That is a small, modest objective, one that will probably attract a sufficient number of investors who are watching closely. Can we rely on these leaders in this context? Sam actually seems to be quite trustworthy. Perhaps also Jensen Huang, or of course Zuck, or Elon, or Peter Thiel, or the investors themselves, perhaps their advisors? Can we honestly trust them to take on the heavy responsibility of building our common future for the sake of all of us? They are, in fact, not evil at all, but they could truly become. It is, as a matter of fact, typically a slow and gradual process, just as we have observed in the past. How then do you know, one, that they are politically involved? And if we must kiss the ring of thorns in order to retain more revenue, then we shall go ahead and do that indeed. Genesis Mission, which was announced yesterday, is in effect an AI Manhattan project conducted by the American government, and it is also applying steady pressure on the European Union to repeal the law. No matter what you think about this law, the AI Act is not perfect in practice, and it also appeared long before ChatGPT was launched. Consequently, there are many problems. But what exactly is happening here anyway? Where is this all heading? This is staggering. NVIDIA 3 weeks ago had a $5 trillion market cap, bigger than all the drug companies in the world combined. One company that is all the pharma firms rolled into a single entity. The IPOs going public next year for at least $1 trillion will be the largest IPOs in market history. Some companies say, of course, that the banks are behind a $3 to $4 trillion initial public offering. Greed knows no bounds. ChatGPT is now being used for shopping. Shopping apps, the internet becomes an AI network. Clearly, here we see ChatGPT's message. It will become the operating system of your life. That is a modest claim. I'd like to have OS implanted here. Perhaps I could get it done, so I won't have to operate on myself anymore.
People often talk about eliminating poverty, giving everyone amazing medical care. Well, there's actually only one way to do that, and that's with the Optimus robot.
The autonomous machine we have been discussing. Remember this clearly. This is precisely the way we will solve everything, once and for all. Inequality, we will address the rights we send a robot. Thanks, Elon, for your experience. Now we are at the point where we must ask a question. We can no longer ignore these existential side effects. We have ignored them here in dealing with climate change. Now we are paying the price for this today. If we do the same thing with AI, we will inevitably face AI warfare. The arms race surrounding the topic of artificial intelligence. We must reclaim the future. We must finally speak up loudly and clearly and say that this future, built in Silicon Valley, could be good when it comes to practical, hands-on matters, but not when it concerns human beings and the broader fabric of society. On social media, we have already seen how it poisons us, in the truest sense of the word. We must identify and establish new rules. Nobody likes excessive rules, yet we are in this transition from profitable capitalism to sustainable capitalism, as Al Gore noted in 2011, already 15 years ago. This principle of politics is no longer about whether you are left or right, socialist, communist, populist, or whatever else you might be claiming. There remains nothing at all but a good future or a bad future. That is the central question indeed, I think. Do our ideas really bring a good future or a bad future? And I think that is the point at which we must clearly say the 5 Ps, people, planet, purpose, peace, prosperity, which could constitute a completely new, robust, future-proof logic. It is not new either, sustainable development goals, and so on. And the ironic thing is, as know-it-alls, we already have this very thing here among us. Perhaps we could export it somewhere, not only artificial intelligence. The fact is that the majority of the people who work on AI here eventually emigrate elsewhere in order to make money from it. We also urgently need a brand new United Nations. This is urgent. For many years now, the UN has been largely ignored on these topics. It's time for a reboot. That brings to mind Doug Hammarskjöld's remark that the United Nations was not created to bring us heaven on earth, but to rescue us from hell. This is a good moment to reissue that idea once again at this very point in time. Multi-realism. We need once more fresh, transformative thoughts that declare we are all in this together, collaborating to fully harness and make the most of these enormous possibilities for our shared future. Robotics, humanoid robots, cancer detection, AI, geoengineering. Then it could possibly turn out quite well indeed, but not if we say we intend to use it as an instrument of power. There, we must carefully and honestly consider where we stand. Here, and similarly in Europe. Europe stands for humanism, and that, as a consequence, slows us down somewhat. And lazy, at times as well. We must diligently work on that. Certainly indeed. We don't need autocratic technology corporations, but democratic ones, period. The future, Microsoft says, was just last week the subject of a major Microsoft analysis, which concluded that humanist is superintelligence. Wow, that really takes courage. For Microsoft, I don't know whether anyone from Microsoft is here today. Probably yes, say, wow, humanist superintelligence. That is truly a bold and remarkable claim. We need technology companies that do what must be done for society today. Open source, regenerative models, transparency, accountability, autonomy, human-AI symbiosis and augmentation, nothing replaces. This is indeed truly possible. We can push this forward. There are already several possibilities and many ideas on this topic. We certainly need a new agency, like the International Atomic Energy Agency, to generate this superintelligence for humanity. There are already documents on the topic of red lines that state we do not truly allow AI to control nuclear weapons. That could also be right here at home. That would, I think, be a substantial advantage that we could offer here. As I stated at the outset, the Industrial Revolution is now the intelligence revolution. We urgently need new extensive training programs on this topic, because it is no longer about what we know, what we learned 20 years ago in our MBA. Now it is about what the machines can do. The machines know everything, and that amazing development will, in time, be perfected sooner or later. All the facts, all the logic, every detail. Our restart is to focus on what the machines cannot do. Another kind of knowledge, meaning and understanding. The andro-rhythms, as I call them, are something our children must learn, and we ourselves in the workplace as well. They would today rather have one that embodies compassion, mystery, values, and consciousness than someone who perhaps can also make an Excel spreadsheet. AI can do that very well nowadays. We have to rethink everything from the ground up and change the way we approach things in our daily practice for good measure. Surely many routine jobs will disappear over time. Telemarketing, thank God. The conference calls translation, as we currently have it, you can really see it here today as well. Or, of course, the call centers as well. We must prepare for the end of routine work. What does that mean? Do we really require a completely brand new pot? I believe so. An artificial intelligence fund and robot techs as well. One is now called basic capital, not basic income. So there are a great many new ideas we must examine and consider. We cast a vote here, I think, about 10 years ago on the topic of basic income. Crushing. I think Zurich was even in favor of it, if I remember correctly, but overall not. That is something we really need to think over again and carefully consider what it actually means for us. Otherwise, we'll reach a point at which you know the film, yes, you know the film, for everyone, where we relate more to the screen and to technology than to people in society. The wolf you feed is the wolf that wins in the end. If we keep feeding this wolf and keep insisting that we are on the path to replacing humans because it earns a great deal of money, then we have earned nothing else for us all. We must urgently standardize artificial intelligence as a practical, usable tool. As a tool. Better, more robust software. Yet AI as God, as a truly digital being, we leave that to Silicon Valley and carefully deliberate over the red lines. Social media must be regulated. Global companies must be held fully accountable for their actions. We repeatedly recoil from that here, again and again. Why? Because we have financial interests at stake and a strong pragmatic incentive to protect them. We certainly do not want to see a war of words or a war of trade unfold. But at some point, a clear line must be drawn, and we must say, enough is enough. Pay for content created by real people. Public media, there we can still hope that a genuinely human, thoughtful, and principled opinion can come through. Reject the techno-reductionist approach. Boycott the grim future, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Andreessen, and build Swiss data sovereignty. A very important and timely topic indeed. We already have that with proto-mail and other things as well, and we are also preparing for new knowledge too. I'm coming to the end now. I think that we here in Switzerland can model a good future. Perhaps we should consider whether we should perhaps hold a Good Future Summit here in Zurich. And let's have a thorough discussion about how that could look in practice. What do we really need at this moment? Leadership, clarity, and a vision. And courage, the very thing we so often lack. I wish you a good future, and I hope we will meet there together. Thank you very much.